course.
She can come up.
Yeah.
জয় জননী জয় শ্রী শারদামণি করুণারূপিণী জয় মা। জয় জয় জননী জয় শ্রী শারদামণি করুণারূপিণী জয় মা। আদা শক্তি পরমা প্রকৃতি আদা শক্তি পরমা প্রকৃতি অসরণ গতি তুমি মা। অসরণ গতি তুমি মা। জয় জগতারিণী ভব ভয়হারিণী দুর্গতি নিবারিণী মা। জয় জগতারিণী ভব ভয়হারিণী দুর্গতি নিবারিণী মা। সিদ্ধি প্রদায়িনী মুক্তি বিধায়িনী সিদ্ধি প্রদায়িনী মুক্তি বিধায়িনী জীবগতি দায়িনী মা। জীবগতি দায়িনী মা। নিখিল জগৎ মাতা জীব কল্যাণরত লজ্জা পটাবৃতা মা। নিখিল জগৎ মাতা জীব কল্যাণরত লজ্জা পটাবৃতা মা। দুর্জন সজ্জন সন্তান অগণন দুর্জন সজ্জন সন্তান অগণন পালনকারিণী মা। পালনকারিণী মা। জয় শারদেশ্বরী সীতারাধা মাতা মেরি যশোধরা বিষ্ণুপ্রিয়া মা। জয় শারদেশ্বরী সীতারাধা মাতা মেরি যশোধরা বিষ্ণুপ্রিয়া মা। যুগদেব বন্দিতা সুর নর সেবিতা যুগদেব বন্দিতা সুর নর সেবিতা নমো নারায়ণী মা। নমো নারায়ণী মা। জয় জয় জননী জয় শ্রীরামদামণি করুণারূপিণী জয় মা। আদা শক্তি পরমা প্রকৃতি আদা শক্তি পরমা প্রকৃতি অসরণ গতি তুমি মা। অসরণ গতি তুমি মা। জয় জয় জননী জয় শ্রী শারদামণি করুণারূপিণী জয় মা। করুণারূপিণী জয় মা। করুণারূপিণী জয় মা।
Okay, good morning everyone. It's nice to see all of your eyes. Yeah, see people starting to come again. Our topic this morning is the holy name of God. I have a whole pile of papers here. This was a series of talks that I gave many years ago at our Washington DC Center. And I'm going to try to compress it and pick and choose, so don't be surprised if you see me flipping pages and not saying anything. But I'll do my best to try to complete the whole thing this morning and tomorrow morning. There's something very special about the name of God in every religious tradition. Of course, in the Hindu Vedantic tradition, we know even to repeat the name of God at the time of death is supposed to give liberation, even by accident. We have our story with Jamila, taking the name of his son Narayan. Anyhow, we find it in every tradition. There's some repetition of the name of God, using some mala, rosary, or something like that. And in the Vedantic tradition, Hindu tradition, we even have this idea that the name of God and God himself are one, Nama Nami. And even some traditions that the name of God is greater than God himself. A very interesting idea that we have. The different stories in the Puranas and other traditions about this tremendous power of the name of God. One nice story, it occurs in different forms in different traditions. I heard it with regard to Kabir. You know, Kabir, he was probably Muslim, a weaver, but somehow he had this great desire to take initiation with one of the great saints of that time, Ramananda. And so he played a little trick on him. This is Ramananda wasn't willing to do it. So early morning he knew this is Ramananda, that he would go for his bath in the Ganga at a certain place. And early morning it's still dark out. So he laid down on the steps so that when Ramananda came, his foot touched his body. And in fear he yelled out, Ram Ram, Rama Rama. So then he took that as his initiation, that he had the holy touch of the Guru and received the mantra. So the story is that once this Kabir, he had to go to some trip someplace, so he told his son that if anybody comes for any spiritual advice or anything, that I'll leave everything up to you. So one merchant came who was suffering from leprosy. So his son said to him, you repeat the name of Rama twice and you'll be cured. So later his father came back and he asked him what happened, and when he told him this Kabir, he was very upset. He said, this is all you think of the power of the name of Rama. You should have told him only repeat it one time, it would have been enough. So we have these different stories like that. Rukmini, there's another story from, I don't know, one of the Puranas, that Krishna himself wanted to give the amount of gold equivalent to his weight. There was a tradition in those days. They had these huge pans, and someone would sit on one side, and they would add something on the other side. So they were doing with gold, I think, and they kept doing it, and they couldn't put enough gold to equal the weight of Krishna. It has to be enough so that the pans go up like that. So then Rukmini said, okay, you remove all of the gold and everything. I know what to do. She took a tulsi leaf and she wrote the name Krishna on it, and she put it on the pan, and it went like that. So the name of Krishna was even greater than Krishna himself. Different stories, but all to indicate the greatness of the name of God. Now, why is it so important, this name of God? And I say in other traditions also, in the Jewish tradition, the most famous prayer is called the Shema. That hear, O God, that God is one. And it says, blessed be his name forever and ever. So, and there's a repetition name, of course, in Christianity with the name of Jesus and Mother Mary. These are all very, very important elements. Islam, you'll see they're always with the rosary. And this is, in Islam, of course, there's no image of God, so they have to rely on the name even more. Well, this is something that we find in all of these different traditions. So I wanted to go through a little bit about this idea of why the name of God is so important in spiritual life, not just in theory, but in spiritual life in our practice with the japa, with meditation and everything else. The Hindu tradition is Vedantic tradition is interesting because the concept of God, I'm using just the generic term God, is so high that it's very hard to make it tangible for us. One of the names of Brahman, we can say, is Anama, the nameless one. So we have this idea that God is, or the Brahman is, without name and without form. Nama Rupa, and this Nama Rupa, these are attributed to Maya because of name and form. That infinite absolute reality appears to be this world with all of the various items in it and everything. But the name and form, this is the way we access that reality. So we put a name to it and we add a form to it in order to be able to worship, in order to have a relationship, in order to realize that reality. So if it's formless absolute reality, then this name becomes something very helpful and relevant for us. And the advantage of this Vedantic view is that we understand that each and every name is valid. One of the problems with the different religious traditions is that there'll be some who will say, no, our name is the only name, and our form and our conception is the only conception. This Vedanta, especially the way Sri Ramakrishna teaches it, makes itself available to every possible interpretation. You all know the illustration of the vat of liquid. A man comes to a village with a vat of liquid and he calls everyone and says that I can dye your cloth whatever color you want. And they said, okay. And the guy, I want my cloth dyed blue, and he puts it in the vat and it comes out blue. And the other person says green. He puts in the same vat, the same liquid, and it comes out green. Another says yellow, it comes out yellow. So this Vedantic conception is that God is that source from which every possible conception of God is there. Every possible form and every possible name is equally valid. So there'll be some traditions that will worship God as mother, some that worship God as father. Those who worship God as father, they'll say blasphemy to say God as mother. Some traditions, they'll be very strong that way. There'll be some who will say, no, you have to worship God as Krishna, unless you accept our Krishna, unless you accept God as mother, unless you accept Jesus, that you're not worshiping God in the proper way. But the Vedantic tradition is good because there's a whole variety of names that can be used. We have so many different types of literature that will have 1,000 names. There's Vishnu Sahasranama, things like that, all different names and all different conceptions. So because of this transcendent nature of a Brahman, without name, without form, and this understanding that we need to do it for our sake, to add the name and add the form, then we understand that they're all equally valid and all equally helpful to us. So this is the positive side of it. Negative side of it is that people will quarrel over the name. Positive side is that now we've taken this very abstract concept, Brahman, and we're personalizing it for ourselves so that we can form that relationship. And this, of course, is something that Sri Ramakrishna talked about so much, that we have to have a relationship with God. Swamiji explains it very nicely, that this relationship starts out with a dualistic understanding. God is here and we're here. And through this relationship, he says love is like this cord that binds us to God, and through which we become closer and closer and closer. And then we realize that we belong to God, and then we realize our oneness. So the path of devotion allows us to start from a dualistic point of view, and to become closer and closer. And we do this to a large extent by putting a name on this nameless and formless reality. I want to talk just a little bit, I won't go into too much, about this, what we call language philosophy. That of the word is the way we refer to something that is not there. If we didn't have words, we couldn't think. That all thought comes in terms of words. Feelings. We wonder, do we need words for feelings? In a sense, a little bit. I'll give a couple of examples. Suppose we have two teenagers, a boy and a girl. And the boy says to his friend, I don't know, every time she comes in the room, I feel a little funny sensation in my stomach, and my heart starts to beat a little faster. And then somebody says, oh, you love her, huh? And he says, so now that we add this word love to it. He says, oh my goodness, is that what it is? And then somebody else says, you see that person? Why do they act like that? Why do they always talk about how much they can do and how good they are? The other person says, oh, I see you're jealous. And he says, you're right, I'm jealous. I didn't realize that, why I had these feelings. So even adding the name to a feeling helps us to identify it. Now, when it comes to God, we have a different understanding of the relationship between the word and the object that denoted by the word. Every word will refer to something. Some words refer to things in general. We say chair. What is a chair? Anything that falls within certain parameters, something that you can sit on. It can have 4 legs, it could have 3 legs, it'll be all different. There'll be some things that fall in between. A sofa bed, huh? Is it a sofa? Is a bed half and half? A little bit like that. They all refer to something. Now, when it comes to God, we don't really know what the object of reference is. This is the interesting thing about it, that we're not really sure what we mean by the term, or even by the name. If it's an incarnation, avatar, then of course we have some other type of conception. But we start out with this idea that we're adding a name to something which otherwise we don't really know. People say that very often, how do I love God? I don't know God. And they'll say, well, but you know the name. But you may not know anything else. And this name itself is very helpful in helping us form that type of relationship. Let me give another example. That suppose there's an arranged marriage. And these are old days. One little girl, maybe she's 12, 13, 14 years old, in a village somewhere. The parents say, we've arranged a marriage with this other boy in this other village. And she's never seen him, and he's never seen her. So what's the first thing she says? What's his name? As soon as the name is there, then some type of relationship and some type of imagination comes. She says, oh, my future husband is there. His name is Ram. And then just through that name, somehow this feeling comes that there's some intimacy there. Of course, imagination. She's imagining now what he'll look like and how he'll be and everything. May be wrong, of course. Just as our conception of God will be really subjective. We don't know how objective these things are. But it is very helpful to put a face, putting a name and putting a face on that which is beyond perception. So when it comes to the name of God, this is almost all that we know, especially if we're talking about Divine Mother, or that type of conception of God, Shiva. We have, of course, these Puranic ideas and things. But if we're really talking about this personal God, many traditions, it's really just people have some idea, some old man with a long white beard and sitting on a throne somewhere. And many of the Western traditions, we don't know too much. But his name That's the first thing that we can hold on to. And this is the thing that really, it creates that connection with that infinite absolute reality. So we have this idea, another thing in language philosophy, Western philosophy, is distinction between denotation and connotation. Denotation and connotation, that we can refer to one and the same person with many different names. So somebody will refer to their cousin, their friend, this and that. They'll be referring to the same person. Someone will, in somebody's mind, they can use a term that will have some connotation that this is my friend. For someone else, this is my boss. But the person is the same. The Swamiji makes a very great statement. So, because in Vedanta, this denotation and connotation come to represent the very highest Vedantic philosophical conundrum. That we see a rope and think it's a snake. Now, I'm going to go and say, oh, I saw a snake on the road the other day. Someone else will come and say, no, what you saw was a rope. Now, the object is the same. Look at the difference in the connotation. We're seeing the whole universe as some material thing and filled with fear and delusion and everything. Another person is seeing it as a manifestation of the divine. So it's the connotation is the thing that's so different here. Swamiji makes a great statement. He says, I worship that God which the ignorant call man. Now, just imagine that because he sees each and every individual, he's seeing God dwelling within. We say man, woman, child, and everything. He sees God dwelling. The denotation is the same. I'm also seeing nothing but God here, but I don't know it. So, referring to the same thing. So all of these different names of God, they'll have different connotations for us. But the reality is one and the same. It's our understanding that'll be different. Now I'm going through all of this because this understanding of the relationship between the name and the object is unique with regard to God, because we don't know. And some of the traditions, the Advaitic tradition, we won't even say he or she. Tat. What does tat mean? Tat is a word that's used. It doesn't mean it. Some people say, oh, it means that you're referring to an object. Tat is something referring, what we use to refer to something which is out of view. A tat will be this. Yeah. Tat is something just referring to something which we have no way of referring to. We don't know anything about it. Tat. That transcendent absolute reality. Tat. It's actually our English word that, T-H-A-T and T-A-T, probably related.
Swamiji,
Yeah.
on Tat Sat, is it thou art you?
Thou, yeah, this Om Tat Sat. It's not really a statement. It's three separate terms. If you read chapter 18 in Gita, it says that these are the three designations of Brahman itself. So Om refers to Brahman, Tat refers to Brahman, just as that ultimate reality, which is beyond perception, and Sat, existence. In one of Swamiji's letters, he writes, Om, that exists, something like that. He makes it kind of a sentence, the letter to Josephine MacLeod. But really, it's just three different designations of Brahman. Om Tat Sat. So we can say Om also. What is the connotation with Om? If we read the Mandukya Upanishad, then maybe this connotation will be that it has three parts and it stands for waking state, dream state, the witness. Otherwise, yes, there's not too much. Just that which we can't say anything about, that which has no name and no form. Om. We refer to that same reality as Ishvara. Then what does it mean? The connotation is that infinite absolute reality is the source of creation. huh? We refer to that same reality as Bhagavan. What does that mean? That we can have a personal relationship. There's a nice verse from the Bhagavata that says, Vadanti tat tattva vidas tattvam yad jnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shabdite. That infinite absolute non-dual reality, which the knowers of truth call the highest truth, that goes by the name of Brahman, it goes by the name of Paramatman, it goes by the name of Bhagavan. Connotation different in all three of them. When we say Bhagavan, we mean personal God. We say Paramatman, we mean the self, highest self within. We say Brahman, transcendent reality. Is all the connotation is different, denotation is the same. And just that one infinite Brahman, absolutely everything.
Consciousness, existence, and bliss
Mm.
also is the connotation.
Satchidananda, another way. Yeah, that we can refer. Three different aspects we can say. But yeah, all referring to that nameless, formless reality. So this is the challenge for us. Every other word has some reference. We say chair, we know a chair. We say person, we know that person. We have proper nouns. We have regular nouns that can refer to all different things, many different types of chairs. We have words that stand for emotions. But is the name of God is almost all that we have. That's why we can say the name of God and God are one and the same, until it becomes tangible for us, until we have that realization, until we realize, my very own self, or that the source of my being, that light within which illumines everything, until we have that experience, it's the name that we have to hold on to. That's the one thing that is grabbing hold of. Thakur gives this illustration that he says, imagine that there's a big log and it's at the bottom of the ocean and there's a chain tied around it. And we want to get hold of that log. He said if we can get a hold of the end of the chain that's above water, then we can go link by link by link by link. That's the name. We can say the mantra and japa and everything. Each time we get closer and closer and closer till we get to that reality. Otherwise, we don't know what it is. Somebody says it's a log, somebody says it was a treasure chest. We don't really know but we know how to access it. So this is that idea of the name of God. There was a Broadway play many years ago that many of you probably know about, West Side Story.
Yeah.
You know that? In fact, they're doing a remake. Steven Spielberg's making a remake of the movie. It's a very nice movie. And the theme of it is, it's actually based on the Shakespearean play Romeo and Juliet. Right? So there are two rival gangs. The West Side means New York City, West Side of New York City. And the two rival gangs. One of them is all Puerto Rican. There's a Puerto Rican gang. And the other is all kind of first, second generation from different European countries, Italian, Polish, Irish, and everything. And they hate each other. And they're going to have a big fight, a rumble, and everything. And there's a school dance or something, and both sides go to it at the same time. And they're all facing off with each other and everything. But one of the gang members on one side, who was a good guy, he wasn't going to fight. He didn't want to fight. And one of the girls for the Puerto Rican side, they look at each other. And some love at first glance. Huh? Love at first glance takes place. And they see each other briefly, they dance with each other, and they fall deeply in love with them. But he doesn't know who she is. I mean, he knows that she belongs to this Puerto Rican community and everything, but he wants to know her name. The one thing he wants to know the name. So he finds out her name is Maria. And now, of course, there's a little bit of a, connotation. Maria means Mother Mary. But, so that element is there a little bit. But then he sings this beautiful song. Anybody know it? Anybody know that one? It's Maria, Maria. I just met a girl named Maria, and suddenly that sound will never be the same to me, Maria. And he says, say it loud, and there's music playing. Say it soft, and it's almost like praying. Now just think, say it loud, and there's music playing. Say it soft, and it's almost like playing. Maria, Maria. I'll never stop saying Maria. See, this is that Ottawa Japa. People fall in love with the name of God. Here it's the name of the girl. They're just in high school or something like that. But the same thing takes place. See, that same feeling and everything is there, but as soon as the name is added, that adds this other dimension to it. And he falls in love with the name. Because there's such an identification of the name with the person. So Maria, Maria, I'll never stop saying Maria. But such a beautiful line, say it loud and there's music playing. Say it soft and it's almost like praying. Maria, Maria. So this is what we're dealing with here, that we want to fall in love with God. We have to fall in love with the name first. I don't have to, of course, but this is those who follow this devotional path that put so much emphasis on the name of God. This is the feeling that they have. Okay, now, as I said, we're going to condense some different. That should have been a 45-minute lecture right now. We're going to try to condense these things a little bit. Part of this talk came out of some lectures that I read. There's a book of transcribed lectures by Swami Shraddhanandji. Did any of you ever meet him? He was the head of our Sacramento Center. He's very, very sweet, loving Swami. And he used to come to Hollywood every year, so I used to see him every year, and I stayed with him for just a couple of days in Sacramento. One time he wrote a very beautiful book. I don't know if...
See God Everywhere.
Seeing God Everywhere. It's a series, it reads like a series of essays, but they were all lectures that he gave. Yes, Rajapana, I believe you're right. And a lot of it, the most beautiful lectures there have to do with the name of God in mantra, where I've been using the name of God. Really, this mantra will always contain one of the names of God. And it may have other things, Om, it may have Namaha, it may have the Bija mantra and everything, but the name of God will be, the most important part of it. And why this repetition of the name is so important, and this magical power that it has to transform us and to purify us, even to purify us physically. This physical body, there's the belief that Thakur used to tell this story that Narada came once to see Narayan. They were friends. Narada and Narayan. And he was great devotee. He was considered the greatest devotee. And after he left, Narayan said to Lakshmi, sprinkle some Ganges water where he was sitting. And she was shocked. She said, well, how could we do that? Such a great devotee. And he said, he hasn't received the name. He hasn't yet been initiated with mantra, something like that. So Thakur used to say that even the body becomes purified through this repetition of the mantra. Anyhow, through this practice of the mantra, his name, something awakens. The mantra itself becomes awakened, we ourselves become awakened, something within the heart. I'm going to be reading some quotes from Swami Shraddhanandji about this, what they call mantra yoga. Mantra yoga, it's not a different yoga. It's just mantra yoga means that we're putting emphasis on the repetition of the mantra, which will be used at the time of japa, the time of meditation for most people, and throughout the day. And we'll get to that in a minute. He says the mantra is identical to the Ishta, Ishta Devata, the chosen deity, chosen ideal, that this is, of course, a very important concept in Vedanta, that the concept of God that we have, the form of God, name of God, or something that will be appropriate for us and will appeal to us. So there's a tremendous amount of freedom that way, and based to a large extent on our spiritual attitude and the relationship that we have. If we like to feel that we're a child relying on God, then we'll get a name of the Divine Mother. So whatever it is, the mantra is identical. So we have to feel that not just the name of God, the whole mantra, identical to the Ishta. This understanding should increase in strength as the mantra is repeated. The form of the chosen ideal, or the impersonal ideal of God, should be present in the mind. We have a very famous sutra from the Yoga Sutras. It says Tad Japa, Tad Artha Bhavana. That what is Japa? Japa, repeating the name, but this we have to reflect on the artha, on the meaning, or what is referred to by the name. Bhavana, this is not really thinking so much as feeling, but it means that we have to keep in mind what is it that we're repeating, what is being referred to that way. So it shouldn't be just mechanical. If it's absolutely mechanical, some benefit is there. Holy Mother says, whether you're pushed into the water or you jump in the water, you'll get wet. So some benefit, but ideally, if we really want to do it and get maximum benefit, then we should be let the mind dwell, let it soak in the meaning, bhavana. So the form of the chosen ideal, if it's really, say, an avatar, or even some conception of Mother Kali, something like that, meditation, the form should be there before the mind also. Should be present in the mind. As this practice ripens, the mantra and the ishta. So the mantra and the ishta, that the repetition, the name that we're using, and the object named, with or without form, become increasingly unified. So we start out with this idea that Nama and Namni are one and the same, but this idea becomes stronger and stronger. Mantra Chaitanya, that is the divine consciousness implied in the mantra, will then be awakened. No more will there be doubts that the mantra is one with God. The heart will be filled with joy and peace. So this is, as I say, in this book called Seeing God Everywhere. There's a very nice book, all of these different essays are there. Okay, now, I want to tell a little story. We had a Swami named Swami Bhadrananda. He was an Englishman. He used to pronounce it Badrananda. He was a real Englishman, and they loved to drink tea. They're big tea drinkers. So he used to say that in England we drink tea on 3 different occasions. When it's very hot out, the hot tea can cool you off. When it's very hot out, when it's very cold out, then it can warm you up. And any other time. So these are the 3 occasions. Now, why am I telling this story? Because these are the 3 times to take the name of God. If it's very cold out, that means that we're not feeling very much devotion, things are a little lukewarm, we may be a little depressed, this and that, this will bring that fire to us, bring that heat within us. If we're very hot, we're very upset, we're angry, this and that, we take the name of God, or any other time at all. Now, I want to kind of expand this a little bit. Is maybe a little bit of a stretch, but I want to talk about when it's very drinking tea in order to heat us up. We'll be repeating the mantra at the time of meditation. When it's to cool us off, it'll be doing japa, and any other time will be karma yoga. So these will be three different times that we talk about it. Now, let me say a few words about.
Swami, we have one book to sell on if God everywhere.
What's that?
We have one book to sell if God's everywhere.
Okay.
Anybody wants
Okay,
it.
we can have a bidding war
Yes,
afterwards.
yes, that's the idea.
You
because
start,
I-
yeah.
All the others sold.
You'll start with a certain price and
Okay.
say, yeah, do I hear a higher bid?
I have one.
And I get a percentage.
You, there's one book left.
Ah, okay. Okay, now, let me see where we are here. Anyhow, so what is the difference between repeating the name at the time of what we call japa and repeating the name at the time of what we call meditation? This is something that can be looked at as not very significant. That really the difference between what we call japa and meditation is at the time of japa we're keeping count. We're keeping track of the number. At the time of meditation, that we're still repeating the mantra within, but we're not bothering about the number of times that we repeat it. This is one way of looking at it. And this, of course, makes a lot of sense. So there's not a tremendous amount of difference. We're doing the same thing when we're repeating the mantra. We're trying to meditate also. We're trying to keep the mind focused and everything. And when we're meditating, not everyone does, of course, but we're taking the help of the mantra. So there's not a tremendous amount of difference. Now, Swami Shraddhanandaji, he'll make a nice point that doing japa, especially with a mala, or even counting with the hands, that there'll be some outgoing power. And when we do it with meditation, it'll be something inner. It's an interesting distinction. I'm not sure that it's universally valid, that everyone will find it very helpful. I find it something very, very interesting, that this idea that the japa will be within the realm of what we call pravritti. Pravritti is something that goes outward. Nivritti, meditation, will be going inward. So with japa, we're taking this divine power through the mantra, and it'll be spreading out even through our body and through the whole universe. And with meditation, that same divine power will go deeper and deeper and deeper within. Okay, let me not get ahead of myself here. I'm never going to get these notes back together again. Okay, so this is the distinction between the two. Okay. Yeah, japa, sometimes, of course, we feel that we become a little drowsy in meditation and we can concentrate, so then we'll do japa. So actually, japa sometimes we take to be some crutch. If we're unable to meditate, then do japa. As if it's something easier and we don't have to strain so much and everything. Many people will say that, no, I can't meditate, but I can do japa. I think we're selling it short, that it requires an equal amount of concentration, and it has an equal value, and for some people they'll do japa all of the time. It has that same power. Now it's true for many of us, and myself included, that sometimes in meditation there's not enough to do. That we do feel a little drowsy or sleepy or something, then we'll take up the mala. And somehow, just because it's something a little tangible and concrete, that it'll help us, and we feel that The mind, maybe we don't have to try to concentrate it as much. Mind is a very interesting thing. We can be repeating internally the mantra without thinking about it at all. Mind can be all over the place. We can develop that habit, which is good to develop the habit, to repeat the mantra all the time. But it's not good to be able to do it and think about everything else at the same time. So we have to try to keep the mind fixed very much. So anyhow, the point I'm getting to is that after reading this and this power of the mantra and japa and everything, we get this conviction that we're selling ourselves short if we simply say that japa is something easier and simpler and second-rate spiritual practice. It may be the way that we practice it, but it shouldn't be. So we can really see that this japa occupies the place equally as important and high as what we call meditation. So, what is the essential feature of a japa that distinguishes it from meditation? I don't think it's simply this idea that we're keeping track of the number. This is generally what we tell people, and from a practical point of view, we can say yes, that while you're meditating, you don't have to bother how many times you're repeating the mantra. When you take initiation, perhaps you'll be told you have to do a certain number of times, and to count with your fingers. Now, what does counting with the fingers do? Holy Mother used to say it purifies the fingers. So now we start to see that there's a little bit of this power of the mantra going outward. So in this, one of these essays of lectures of Swami Shraddhanandaji, he talked about this idea of purification. We already saw this idea that the body becomes purified through this japa, and the tongue becomes purified that repeats the name of God, and the fingers become purified. This mala itself becomes a very sacred thing. It's a very good practice to keep the mala in some sacred place, not let it touch the ground, not letting anybody else touch it. Just as we won't let other people hear our mantra out loud, we won't let them touch it. Some people don't let them see it even. They'll keep a bag, or they'll just do it underneath their cloth, something like that. This is also again from Swami Shraddhanandaji. He says, as love for japa increases, the quality of the mantra's sound undergoes a change. He was a very deep thinker with regard to this repetition of the mantra. The mantra then no longer comes from the tongue or throat, but is felt to be originating from the depth of the heart. Slowly, the distinction between the mantra and the chosen ideal and the form of the chosen ideal melts away. Sound and form merge and become one. With continued practice, the sound of the mantra assumes subtler forms. Coming from the depths of the heart, the mantra begins to flow through the bloodstream, pervading the entire body. Now, part of the reason for all of this is when we're doing japa, as I say, there's some body consciousness, because we're using our hand and everything. In the repeating the mantra while we're meditating, we're really trying to go deep within. Forget we have a body. Forget we have a tongue. For the mantra, forget that we're repeating it. We can get to the point where we feel that we're just listening. It's going on its own. This is one of the higher stages of the japa, when it goes on without any effort. But when we're doing japa, we can feel that, yes, I have this physical body, I have these hands, I'm sitting in a room, I have this body, the whole universe is there. And there's the power of the mantra going within at the time of meditation and going without at the time of japa. So with continued practice, the sound of the mantra assumes subtler forms, coming from the depths of the heart. the mantra begins to flow through the bloodstream, pervading the entire body. The heartbeat seems to be one with the sound of the mantra. Many people will even try to connect the breath with the mantra. That each time they breathe in, they'll repeat one time, out one time. Some people will do. But the time of meditation, as I say, we forget we have the body completely. But when doing japa, these things can be helpful to connect it with the breath. Here he says even with the heartbeat. The heartbeat seems to be one with the sound of the mantra. The movement of the mantra goes to other areas such as breathing, nerve action, and muscular activity. All these activities are expressions of spontaneous japa. Japa begins to be unceasingly repeated in every part of the body. And then japa becomes a total unifying process which involves the whole physical body. Then it goes into the prana, it goes into all the energy of the body that creates, this is all his ideas. The spiritual vibrations, not a material energy, but some type of spiritual energy that brings purification, transformation, and a tremendous amount of peace. These are things that I had never thought about before. How this mantra has a power, and how this power permeates everything. So he says, our breathing becomes quiet and peaceful, our heartbeat becomes slower and calmer. Then he writes, gradually, the spiritual seeker merges the mantra vibration into the movement of prana, the life force. He or she begins to experience the unification of the two movements. That means the vibration of the mantra and the vibration of prana. This leads to the higher experience that the movement of prana itself is mantra repetition. That means the prana moving through the body and through the whole universe. The japa has been transformed from the tongue or throat to the life force, the prana operating in the body. Every action of the prana becomes a vibration of the mantra. Fascinating ideas. Huh? So he says if we direct the mantra to different sense organs, the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin, that they become purified. So there's some belief in this vibratory power even of the mantra, not just the meaning of it, that somehow it's endowed with a real shakti, that there's something tangible and real about this mantra. If we're identifying with God itself, himself, herself, we see this tremendous power that's there. So they become purified in their corresponding sense perception. Sight, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, they all become purified. So what is the result of this? That everything we see as divine. That everything gets changed. To purify our vision means that we don't see physical objects anymore. We don't see anything that takes us away from God. Everything reminds us of the divine. And we find that the whole universe, everything is participating in the repetition of the mantra. These are all fascinating ideas. And everything takes the mind back to God. So repeating this mantra, all of this gives us faith in the power of the mantra. There's a shakti, there's a power there. Of course, it comes also from the fact that there's a divine source for the mantra. All of ours go back to the power of Sri Ramakrishna himself. And in every tradition, they'll take this mantra back. In the Ramanuja tradition, they take it back to Shri, to Brahma. In this mantra tradition, they all take this, their sampradaya, their guru parampara, and this the repetition, they all take it back to a divine source. So this is being practiced by these great souls and passed on. It creates a tremendous amount of power. So then, he says, the mantra is directed to the mental waves. We've already directed it to the senses. Now to the mental waves. And he says this allows us to control the restless mind and all of the hidden tendencies and desires. So the mantra, Swamiji compares it in one place to a corrosive acid that will just, you pour it on something and there's no way to stop it. It'll eat its way through and through till it breaks through completely. And he says, in a natural way that doesn't require extreme self-control. So the mantra, it has its own power and it starts to just take on its own life. This Ajava Japa, it's called, when we really feel that we're not the ones repeating it. It's spontaneously it's going on. This happens. It takes just a little bit of practice. If we really make a great attempt in the beginning to repeat the mantra at all times, then it can become habitual with us. Yes.
We say that the ashram when we sit and do the
Mm.
japa, and that ashram has to be regarded very sacred and very this thing. Do you think the power of mantra also passes from our body to the ashram also? Or
Swami Shraddhanandaji will say it passes through even the stars and the cloud and the sun and the moon to the whole universe. So certainly it does. Yeah. Even if we don't do any place where we sit and think of God exclusively, and we reserve it for that, we should keep that, just like we keep our mala separate, we should also feel that way. Yeah. Yeah, it's not a good practice to share it. Other people will use it, we throw it in a corner, anybody else can do it. We do that sometimes. Even in our ashrams, if we go to visit some other center, that there'll be a whole bunch of asanas. But we know that only the sadhus are using it, or only devotees are using it. But still, to keep that separate for our own is also a very good thing to do. Then he says, just as the movement of the limbs can be felt to be the resounding of the mantra, the mental waves appear to the aspirant to be the resonance of the mantra. So the whole mind, purification of the mind will take place. The dancing of the mind is an expression of the joy of the mantra. We think that this restless mind is just a horrible thing. Huh? There's a line in this Manasa Puja we do. We do this mental worship that says that Nrityam, Chanchalya Manasa, is the restlessness of the mind should be looked upon as like a dancing girl. Sometimes they have this Nat Mandir in front of the temple, and they'll put on a performance, and some dancing girl will be there for the pleasure of the deity to watch. So this restless mind is also like that. We can look at it that way. So everything is an expression of the mind through the power of the mantra. The dancing of the mind is an expression of the joy of the mantra. The whole mind has now joined in japa. When an aspirant who has attained this state sits for japa, the sound of the mantra seems to suffuse the entire body, mind, and prana. Of course, for most of it doesn't. He's talking with this. He was a very poetic person also. He was very close to Swami Paramesanandaji, who was the ultimate poet. And he was very poetic himself. He was a very good writer. He wrote a very beautiful book on Swami Virajanandaji. The story of an epic, it's called in English. Even the ego reverberates as the sound of the mantra. As a result of this absorption in the mantra, an inexpressible peace is experienced. All the sense impressions from past lives are transformed into a sublime calmness. Then he talks about this, the fingers purified. He talked about the mala being purified, and this repetition, turning the beads of the mala, he'll identify with the planets and everything revolving around the sun. They're very poetic and very beautiful. He says even the ground we sit on becomes purified, all of nature becomes purified. And he says the mantra can be directed to the external world. So that same vibration of the mantra that purifies ourselves, purifies our whole surroundings. He says, when the body, senses, prana, and mind become infused with sattva, with purity, by the practice of japa, it is then time to purify all objects and phenomena outside ourselves. This is possible and should be done. We feel that the shrine room becomes purified through repetition of the mantra. Then why not the whole house? Why not the whole world? The endless sky above, according to our normal vision, is material. But when you look at the sky and connect it with the divine, through the inner repetition of the mantra, the material space will change its appearance. The goal of the mantra, namely divine consciousness, will be peeping from the sky. The sky will appear to be a shawl on the cosmic body of God. It's such beautiful ideas, all through the power of the mantra, he's saying. In a similar manner, the moon, the sun, and stars above, the trees, flowers, streams, forests, hills, deserts, and living beings on earth or in water, all these endless segments of the universe can be purified by the mantra and experienced as parts of the cosmic body of Satchidananda, Virat. We have this idea that the whole universe can be seen as a Virat, the cosmic body of Satchidananda, existence, knowledge, bliss, absolute. I had an interesting experience once. I may have told it here. When I was in Rudraprayag, I went on pilgrimage to Kedarnath. Did I tell that here?
Yeah.
Huh?
I think
You've heard it. Okay, good. Going on pilgrimage to see Shiva at Kedarnath. Huh? And it's very traditional. This all these prayags are places with confluence of Ganges, different tributaries of the Ganges. So you're supposed to take bath there. So we went down. I was with two of the monks of our order, and you have to climb down 7 flights of stairs or so to get to the Ganges from the top. And when we got there, it was a night of just crescent moon, very thin moon, crescent moon, and just at the very time we were there, the moon was just resting at the top of this snow peak, the main snow peak that you see. And you see that the very top of it is pure white with snow, and then you can see how the Ganges is coming out for them. And then it snapped that this is Shiva. That this was how these ancient rishis came up with this concept of Shiva as being covered with white ash and everything. It was the snow. Ganges flowing from its hair into the real Ganges. Crescent moon on its head is the real crescent moon. And this is that idea of Virat. And it's very interesting that worshippers of Shiva, they talk about Kailash. They should be the ones that everything is transcendent, right? Infinite, absolute reality. But that Kailash is right here on earth. You can walk to it. Huh? Vaikuntha, where is that? Some other realm. But, so Shiva, so we have this idea of this Virat, that the whole universe is the body of God. Purusha Suktam, the whole universe is the body. What sun and the moon are the 2 eyes? That idea. So, we start through repetition of mantra, he's saying. We start to see, really see this Virat. This is the body of God. This is the manifestation of God. Then, keeping count, the number of repetitions. Is it just for a number? He finds great significance to this idea that we're doing a cycle. We go all the way around once, then we spin it, and we go around the other way. We go this, and this. So he says that it's not just for keeping track, it's not just for concentration, not just for keeping us from falling asleep, that the cyclical aspect of even the Japa Mala for him has tremendous significance. We feel that same divine power that's making the hands turn, this Japa Mala, as the one that's keeping all of the planets and stars and sun and everything in their place. So he says that same divine power of the mantra making the blood course throughout our system, that each time that the trip that goes around, that the blood will go from the heart all the way through the system and come back Everything is like the turning of the beads of the mantra. This universe, he says, becomes a Japa mala. The whole universe. The sun is one bead, the moon another, the constellation of stars yet another. The sky, the ocean, forests, deserts, and mountains are the other beads. Whatever part of the universe comes to the mind becomes beads in this cosmic rosary, cosmic mala. The mantra consciousness, after extending beyond the prana body, mind and body, has pervaded infinite space and time. The entire cosmos has been linked with the consciousness of the mantra. As a consequence, all creation has given up its material mask and has revealed its divine nature. Even the thread that connects all of the beads. What is the significance of that? The Sutratma. Yeah, that there's one divine consciousness, that we're all connected together. There's a very beautiful verse in Gita about that. That just as all beads are strung on the thread, so are all being strung on me. So that divine consciousness is connecting each and every one of us, like the thread in the mala. And when we turn that mala, we're recreating this connection between all of us. Okay, so let me stop here. So this takes care of this idea of is mantra working its magic outward. When we get to meditation, which we'll start next time, we'll see how it works its way inward also. And so that will be when we're trying to get warm. Now is the time when we're trying to bring the coolness. We want this cool, pure, breathing this cool, pure air, seeing God everywhere. Times of meditation, we want to bring that tapas, that burning heat within. So tomorrow we'll talk about meditation a little. And third thing is taking tea everywhere, every time. That'll be karma yoga. The value of repeating the mantra throughout the day. In every action, every moment, if possible, to practice the repetition of the mantra. Okay, let me stop here. Is there any questions? I apologize for being so disorganized, but I was a little lazy. I could have gone through the whole thing and put it into one package, but this is called Thomas.
Any particular reason they do it 108 times always? Or beads to tell the japa, it's like 100 beads, right?
There's some mystical significance. I don't know exactly what the source of it. Some mystical significance to these multiples of 9. Even mathematically, every multiple of 9 adds up to 9. So 18 is 1 plus 8, and then 2 plus 7, and 3 plus 6. And we find this throughout the whole tradition. 18 verses in Gita. There'll be 108 is also a multiple of 9. These are all sacred for some reason. I don't know. There was a Greek philosopher, Pythagoras. He had all of these different theories, number theories. The different numbers are sacred. Some they have different meanings to different significance, and many people believe things like that. Why it comes out that way exactly, I don't know. But this is one explanation that there's something special about this number 9. Because 9 is 10 minus 1. So you have the 10 and minus 1, whatever you do to it, multiplied by anything, it's going to end up adding up to 9. Otherwise, I don't know exactly why.
I have one question.
Yes.
So, at what level is the distinction between the life force and the self? I mean, I understand everything is all consciousness ultimately, but what level is that distinction, life force and the self?
This is a very, very interesting question. And for those who didn't hear, the difference between prana, the life force, and the nature of the self, or we can say consciousness. In the Sankhya tradition, that prana And life, all of this will be in the side of Prakriti, nature. And Purusha, the self, or consciousness, that will be completely separate. In Advaita Vedanta, also they'll make that same type of distinction between the seer and the seer, and the eternal and the changing and everything, so that the prana will also belong to nature somehow, to be material. Even mind is, and Sankhya is considered to be material and everything. But in the Upanishads are a little bit unusual. We don't pay enough attention to the things we read in the Upanishads, because this Brahman of the Upanishads is living, throbbing being. And we have this idea that prana is also nothing but Brahman. And this Brahman is manifesting itself as life. Those of you who had the privilege of seeing Swami Tathagatanandaji, this was his favorite thing. Life is Brahman. Beat the table. Life is Brahman. I used to think, no, consciousness is Brahman. And the life belongs to nature and everything. But then reading the Upanishads more and more, we see that their conception of Brahman was a little bit different. It was a living, breathing thing. It was that ultimate reality which expands. The meaning of Brahman is expansion. Brahm, it means to expand, to become great, to become vast. Brihad Aranjika, that means the larger one. So this is all our understanding. These are not absolute distinctions. We can look upon life itself as divine, as a Brahman, that life force, as a Brahman. From this relative point of view, material point of view, okay. But what is the source of everything? If we say the sun, the Advaitins will like to say the sun is just that pure light which shines on everything, which illumines everything, the sun. But we know the sun is the source of heat. The sun is the source of life. That because of the sun, not only do we see things, but plants can grow. That it'll warm us when we're cold. So this is also the other side of Brahman. This is why Thakur says we can't eliminate the Shakti side from it. Brahman and Shakti, abhed. They're non-different, they're inseparable. So from that side of it, from the Shakti side, we can say prana, of course, is divine. And we won't make that absolute distinction. If we're trying to separate the self from this physical body and prana and all of that, that's okay. As in the 1880s, we do that in the beginning. What Thakur says, in the beginning we practice negation. Then afterwards, affirmation. We see everything is emanation from Brahman, manifestation of Brahman. So I think from the Upanishadic point of view, and from a practical point of view, why not look upon this prana, this life force, as divine? Where does it come from, this life force?
So relating to
Yeah.
Shankar's and your
Yeah.
descent, but thinking, reflecting on that, I feel the prana, the urge to do something, some work, some action, some whatever, the urge to come here, the
Mhm.
urge to do something good for somebody, that is prana's urge to do something. But don't you think that the pure consciousness is related like the pulse and the string? The string is pulled by the divine, and it is giving that instruction, this urge to do this or do that. Don't you think there's a relation between prana energy or prana urge and the divine consciousness?
Yeah. See, when Thakur's understanding is, if we say pure consciousness and we mean just this infinite absolute reality, this divine light, something like that, we're not getting the full weight. He gives the example of the bell fruit. He says, unless we see the Shakti that's hidden within Brahman, sometimes manifest, sometimes not manifest, we're not getting the full picture. That's why I say, if the sun is just illumination, but we don't see the power of giving life, then we're not getting the full picture of it. So if we want to practice the path of Jnana Yoga, and we want to separate this consciousness from everything else, then we negate. We say, no, even the body, the mind, prana, and everything, I'm the witness of all of these things. This is, of course, a very, very wonderful, beautiful, valid path to take. But Thakur says this is just to get to the roof. It's not the ultimate truth. The
But
ul-
that is the inactive part of Brahman which witnesses everything. But when it manifests the Shakti, that is the, that is the active part of Brahman. So, am I right? Or my thinking is.
See, there's no right or wrong here. See, this is one point that Thakur makes, is that these is a modpot. That this is our understanding of these things is helpful to us in our spiritual practice. There's no such thing as that this is true or this is false. It's not like that. This is why he completely differs from the acharyas. They'll argue with each other that no, there can't be two, there can't be some separation, that this is only real, the other is not. It's not like that. For him, everything is a spiritual attitude, and helpful in a certain way, that the ultimate truth is beyond everything. The ultimate truth can't be expressed in words. The ultimate truth is experience. What Brahman is can't be stated in words. So his understanding is completely different. That if somebody says no, Brahman has to be separate from prana, this is their point of, this is a mud. Mud means an opinion. This is their point of view. It's valid to a certain extent, not universally valid. Somebody says no, my conception of Brahman is that it's source of everything. There's a prana and everything, that equally valid. Somebody may have some point of view that really is nonsensical. We're not saying that completely relativistic, that everybody's point of view is equal. It has to make some sense at least. But these are two very valid ways of looking at it. Ramanuja's, his way of looking at the world is beautiful. Half of the teaching of Thakur are really qualified non-dualism. This is the bell fruit example. This will be perfectly consistent with Ramanuja. Even M is of the opinion that Thakur followed this Vishishtadvaita Vedanta. And but Thakur, he didn't follow anything. He liked them all. They were all equally valid. You can't pinpoint them. You can't stick them in any category, pigeonhole them that way. So they were all valid insofar as their paths. Mat pot, used to say. But not Ishwanai. Don't confuse this path with God himself. It's just a means to get there. So I like that idea. Why limit Brahman to just this pure consciousness? The Brahman pulsating everywhere. You see, pulsating, manifesting in everyone, the source of everything, dwelling within the hearts of all beings, prana, everything. Why not? Then we'll close here. Huh? Any other questions? Okay, then Devalina, closing song? Oh, okay, do you want the group to lead the closing song? You want to do Ramakrishna Sharanam? That's fine, good. We can do that, yeah. Good, thank you.
Krishna Sharanam, Rama Krishna Sharanam, Rama Krishna Sharanam, Sharane. Kripa hi kevalam, kripa hi kevalam, kripa hi kevalam, Sharane. Kripa hi kevalam, kripa hi kevalam, kripa hi kevalam, Sharane. Rama Krishna Sharanam, Rama Krishna Sharanam, Rama Krishna Sharanam, Sharane. Sharanagatam, 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 Sharane. Prabhu Sharanagatam, 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 Sharane. Rama Krishna Sharanam, Rama Krishna Sharanam, Rama Krishna Sharanam, Sharane. Namo Shri Gurave, Namo Shri Gurave, Namo Shri Gurave, Namo Namo. Namo Shri Gurave, Namo Shri Gurave, Namo Shri Gurave, Namo Namo. Rama Krishna Sharanam, Rama Krishna Sharanam, Rama Krishna Sharanam, Sharane. Rama Krishna, Jaya Jaya Rama Krishna, Rama Krishna, Jaya Jaya Rama Krishna, Rama Krishna, Jaya Jaya Rama Krishna, Rama Krishna, Jaya Jaya Rama Krishna. Rama Krishna Sharanam, Rama Krishna Sharanam, Rama Krishna Sharanam, Sharane. Rama Krishna Sharanam, Rama Krishna Sharanam, Rama Krishna Sharanam,